Republican Senator Steve Daines of the Senate Banking and Finance Committees. He also serves as the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Sir, thank you and welcome to you. We've got that live picture up of where the president is about to speak here in New York State, just a short time from now, Valhalla. He just landed in Westchester Airport. Ahead of his remarks, set this up for us. He is making very bold claims about where Republicans are going with their spending cuts. You just heard it from a bunch of Democrats there. So I'll ask you point blank, are you seeking to cut veterans' benefits?
That is absolutely false. This is propaganda coming from the White House. Look, here's where we're at. We're 3 weeks away from June 1st, where Secretary Treasurer Yellen has said we face defaults on our debt. That will cause catastrophic, massive turmoil in financial markets, not just in the United States, but around the world. The House Republicans under Speaker McCarthy acted. They acted early, they acted responsibly. They passed a bill that would raise the debt limit in exchange for some responsible, common sense reductions in spending. What they're proposing here is taking back $60 billion of unspent COVID funds. They're talking about welfare reforms to make sure that able-bodied Americans work instead of receive welfare. Put work requirements in place. These are very simple, straightforward, common sense reforms. Again, the Republicans were early and responsible. Contrast that to Joe Biden, who for 90 days has been silent, giving Speaker McCarthy the cold shoulder. The White House has been late and completely irresponsible. They're politicizing this. I'm proud of Speaker McCarthy. Joe Biden needs to come to the table and negotiate a bipartisan agreement that will avoid this looming cliff that the United States is headed towards if we don't do something before the early June.
All right. So in addition to the claims that Republicans are seeking to cut veterans' benefits, Senator, Biden and other Democrats are also claiming, you can put them up on the screen ahead of the speech. They say you want to shrink federal grant programs to local police departments. You want to cut the DEA and the FBI and Border Patrol staffing. They're making the case that Republicans are going to worsen the fentanyl crisis, making finding addiction treatment more difficult. Is any of that true?
It's false. Look, what they're doing, they're conflating a debate that's going on in terms of budget priorities going forward versus the looming debt ceiling crisis. What they should be debating here are the parameters that Speaker McCarthy and the House Republicans just passed. You see, they're not talking about clawing back $60 billion of unspent COVID dollars. They're not talking about work requirements as part of welfare reform. Why? Because that's the truth. And that's what's contained in that bill that the House just passed.
Okay, so President Biden, during these hours yesterday, made the claim that there will be 8 million job losses as a result of the Republicans' plan here. I'll put up the GOP debt ceiling proposal so people know exactly where things stand heading into this. The Republicans want to cap the federal agency's budget growth at 1% for the next decade, okay? New work requirements for welfare, Republicans are pitching, rolling back new IRS funding, blocking student loan relief, repealing green energy programs, rescind unspent COVID aid, as you just mentioned, Senator. The president and his team are making the case that Republicans' plan is going to result in massive job losses. Have you anticipated the overall economic impact or the unintended consequences of the Republican plan?
Well, look, the biggest threat to this economy going forward is massive federal spending and the $31.5 trillion of debt. Republicans are doing something responsible. They're still talking about net increases in spending. If you look at that plan, they just want to curb the amount of increases in spending. And any person I talk to on the street back home in Montana, if you ask them, do you think there's ways we could get the federal government to be a little more responsible and efficient in spending? They say absolutely yes. What you have is this liberal agenda of the White House who are now telling falsehoods. They're telling lies to the American people because guess what? They're cornered right now. They, for 90 days, gave McCarthy the cold shoulder. Now they've got to come to the table and negotiate. And this has been irresponsible of the White House. And they're playing with live fire here because failure to act will lead to destabilization of our financial markets at a time when banks already are having some struggles because of the high interest rates and the inflation caused by this administration.
I'm just going to note that this speech, unlike his previous speech, this is happening during market hours. The Dow's off 221 points. Certainly the markets are going to be watching where the president goes with this speech. And I'll finish with this Gallup poll to see where the American people stand as far as their confidence in economic leaders over the past year. Certainly it's gone down for Federal Reserve Chairman Powell, who's been tasked with taming inflation. President Biden's taken a 5-point hit. Dem leaders in Congress a 4-point hit. And while GOP leaders in Congress confidence has gone down, it's gone down by the smallest margin there. Senator Daines, appreciate you joining us ahead of the president's remarks. Thank you very much.